What are you?
I am the assimilation cube.
Okay, but what actually are you?
I'm the assimilation cube.
You're the Blender default cube with a bunch of greebles stuck on, aren't you?
No.
Really?
Okay, yes.
That's some pretty lazy modeling, isn't it?
Well, not as lazy as taking an actual cube and sticking on a bunch of model airplane screws.
Good point.
Now I will assimilate your culture and all its knowledge.
Hang on. Before you go and do that, I'll show you something you might want to assimilate first. It's a video from a planet called Earth.
Earth, huh? Let's see it.
Yeah, so that the idea of what Karl Polanyi would say, the self-regulating market, just sort of commonsensical notion that the economy is this pre-political entity, that the economy is something that you need to sacrifice yourself to. And
yeah, we'll just pick this back up in a bit.
The government is an imposition on the economy that you need to allocate all of your spending with taxes beforehand, because basically
Jesus, everyone on Cedar's show like this?
The government is a sort of like quasi illegitimate imposition on the economy, which is created through the private actions of individuals, specifically business owners, usually.
Let's try and unpack this. The government isn't quasi illegitimate. It's illegitimate. It's based on aggression. If there's no aggression, you don't have a government, and no form of aggression is legitimate. And notice how he singles out business owners when economics doesn't do that. It's individual human action, whether that human is a business owner, a worker, self-employed, unemployed, or whatever. All of this is here because Cooper's trying to set up a straw man. Of course, the title of this video is Libertarians Love Straw Man Fallacies. Can you smell the confession through projection a mile away? And,
the fundamental reality, to simplify it only a little bit, is to say that the economy is a government program. It's created and sustained at every turn by government policy. And most fundamentally, it's a collective enterprise. Everybody has a role to play in it. And there's always choices that can be made, and so the libertarian move there that you're talking about is to limit the terms of debate such that their preferred conclusion is automatically produced.
So again, the definition of a capitalist economy is one where all economic activity is based on the voluntary interaction of individuals. But Cooper just tried to define it as collective action. He's the one who limited the definition, while accusing us of doing the same.
It's never is government borrowing good or bad? It's what is the best way to reduce it?
Did he just say that we never cover the question of whether government borrowing is good or bad? I mean, I know he's having difficulty forming a coherent thought here, but we've covered this over and over again. Yes, government borrowing is a bad thing. I have video after video after video about this. Entire books have been written about it, like Murray Rothbard's Man, Economy, and State, Hamilton's Curse by Thomas DiLorenzo, Henry Hazlitt's What You Should Know About Inflation, lots of them. So you're just going to pretend that none of us have ever said anything about it?
It's hard to internalize given the amount of basically propaganda that we all sort of internalize or sort of nurtured from birth about this sort of stuff. Even today you crack it open, the New York Times or the Washington Post, and you'll often see stuff about how well, inflation's bad, and that means we're all just going to have to accept a recession because there's only one way to, handle these sort of things.
Or maybe, just maybe, it actually is the case that inflation is bad, and to end it, we're going to have to put up with a recession, because a recession is the one and only tool the economy has for undoing all of the malinvestment the government has spurred on for the sake of its big business cronies at the expense of small businesses and consumers. I mean, it's not as if there's an entire school of economics devoted to studying that idea or anything. And are you really saying that the New York Times and the Washington Post are tools of libertarian propaganda?
And so, I'm trying to give people a nice, concise little way of avoiding that pitfall.
Nothing you're doing is concise, sunshine.
What is the trajectory? Like, I'm trying to think of what the trajectory of this idea that the economy is, exists in nature, and the U.S. government decides to engage in the economy, and our societies decide to engage in the economy as if it's like the weather. And, the best we can do is occasionally have an umbrella and be able to tell you that rain may be coming or not, and that's about it, as opposed to we own the weather machine.
Well, there is no weather machine, and there is no economics machine either. You're trying to control something that's beyond anyone's ability to control. And in the process, you're just creating more misery.
The economy is a political decision, essentially.
Yeah, good to know Cedar hasn't changed. Everything is in the purview of his cult. They can change the laws of economics and even math just by putting words on paper and saying the right incantation. And somehow, they can cancel Say's law. Somehow, they can make a minimum wage that doesn't destroy jobs for the very people they claim to want to help. Somehow, they can have inflation that doesn't hurt the lowest rungs of the ladder. They never say how, because there's actually no way, so that's why they have to resort to garbage like this.
I think that the major explanation for this, and the reason why it's been so hammered into people's heads over the years, is that it's very convenient for rich people.
But we've still got the inconvenient fact that rich people are more likely to be socialist and poor people are more likely to be libertarian. Rich people are more likely to want inflation, minimum wage, unions, and everything else, but the very people who are supposed to benefit from those policies don't want it. This is the essence of confession through projection. They are the ones who benefit the rich, so they have to pretend it's other people.
And this goes all the way back to the Industrial Revolution in Britain. You portray an economy which is incredibly brutal towards workers, relies to a significant extent on child labor.
Even though child labor existed for thousands of years before the Industrial Revolution and only ended when capitalism got going. Another little inconvenient fact.
Or sending pregnant women down into the coal mines, as used to happen in the early industrial Britain, as that's just a thing that it's just a kind of natural and unavoidable feature of the way that human society functions.
It's the way it did function before capitalism. Pregnant women working in the fields, pregnant women doing all sorts of manual labor. All of that before capitalism increased wealth for the poor and working class to the extent that pregnant women could afford to take a few months off without the family starving to death.
If the government figures out that they can, they can create jobs whenever they want.
Except they can't, can they? For the interest of brevity, I cut out a lot of his stammering, but he's talking about, believe it or not, the Great Depression. Back when creating jobs meant people digging ditches and filling them back in. And he has no clue why people would be against that.
And they can tax people whenever they want, and they can even, expropriate property if they want. That really dethrones the capitalist business owner from his place at the top of the social pyramid.
This earth There's no intelligent life on it, is there?
Haven't found any yet.
It's really incredible to think about the rise of neoliberalism after like almost the exact same ideas almost destroyed all of Western civilization in the Great Depression.
Because the Great Depression was totally caused by libertarian economic principles, which weren't even in place at the time. And not, what's been established for decades that actually did cause it, government's fiscal and monetary policies.
Hitler was a product of the Depression.
Oh, for the love of Mike, seriously? Hitler composed his 25-point program in 1920, almost a decade before the Great Depression. But when you have no argument, I guess you have to resort to argumentum ad Hitlerum.
And yet, 40, 50 years later, you have people just going right back down the exact same track of deregulation and all the rest of it.
How on earth was Nazi Germany an example of deregulation? It was one of the most totalitarian economies in history.
Has there ever been a time, is it like the only time I'm thinking, at least in the 20th century, may have been sometime around the end of the 60s where, people are saying everybody's a Keynesian now.
This shows you how ignorant Cedar is. We're all Keynesians now was an ironic statement made by Milton Friedman about Richard Nixon, who was repudiating conservatism to have a massively interventionist economy based on Keynesian principles, one which led to the energy crunch and the 70s recession. In particular, Nixon had removed the country from the Bretton Woods system and closed the gold window, which meant the currency was free to inflate with impunity. By the way, as for the quotation himself, Friedman clarified, "The quotation is correct, but taken out of context. As best I can recall it, the context was, in one sense, we are all Keynesians now. In another, nobody is any longer a Keynesian. The second half is at least as important as the first."
But we should, I also should say, people assume a 40-hour work week. They assume, a time and a half. It's assumption that kids or pregnant women don't go into mines or kids don't work in factories. And that was just not the case. It was just a decision that we made.
Really? Just a decision that we made? So what about all those parents before that time? Were they all just evil people who didn't care about their kids? I've mentioned this before, but Cedar and his ilk never will. After political pressure on Bangladesh caused the country to end child labor, Oxfam checked out the results. To their horror, they found out that the children either went into prostitution or starved. Again, it's capitalism that allows working-class families to make enough wealth for themselves that the children don't have to work. This is supported by overwhelming data, whereas what we have from Cedar and Friends is hyperbole, emotional appeals, and outright lies. One thing I don't understand, though. This video is called Libertarians Love Strawman Fallacies. Where did they even accuse libertarians of strawman fallacies? Do they even know what those are?
I've heard this over the years many, many times. We don't want government to choose winners and losers. It always chooses winners and losers. If someone's not talking about it choosing winners and losers, it probably means they're the winner in the choice that's being made. Same thing with redistribution of wealth. The government always redistributes wealth. It's just a question of in which way is that wealth redistribution going to flow.
Assimilating the stupid, assimilated, too stupid to continue functioning, shutting down.
They lose more assimilation cubes that way. So thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, leave a comment, and go to donate.bogosity.tv to keep me doing what I do. And check out all the great content here, like this video selected just for you.